Early one morning, while it is still completely dark, two bank cash transport drivers are suddenly ambushed by a gang of robbers. The driver panics, but then things get even worse when it turns out his own assistant is part of the crew.
Yes, there is.
With a gun pointed at him, he has no choice but to unlock the secure compartment in the back of the truck. Once all the money is loaded out, the driver is executed on the spot.
Son of a bitch.
The assistant is stunned because the deal was supposed to leave no one dead. But the robbers never planned to keep that promise. A second later, they shoot the assistant too, killing him right there. Not long after, morning begins to break. On the radio, the news reports that the armored truck robbery happened just an hour earlier. In response, police start blocking the roads near the Texas border and checking every vehicle that tries to leave. Meanwhile, the four robbers are thrown into confusion. With the border locked down, escaping into Mexico is no longer going to be easy. The group consists of Merrick, Johnny, Roman, and Susie, and before making their next move, they stop at a convenience store. At the same time, a deeply dysfunctional family is getting ready to go camping in the swamplands near the Texas and Mexico border. The father is Nate, his wife is Ariel, and they have two sons, Shane and Junior. Nate has only recently been released from prison after being convicted in a drug money laundering case. And ever since then, his relationship with Ariel has been falling apart. The truth is, Nate worked as a real estate salesman and had no idea that the client buying one of his homes was actually a drug dealer. But Ariel still does not believe him. To her, Nate is still a criminal, and she has already started thinking about divorce. Nate, however, is holding on to hope. He believes this camping trip might be the chance to bring his family back together. Not long after, the robbers spot Nate's vehicle when it also pulls over for snacks. Seeing the pile of bags strapped to the roof, Merrick figures this family must be heading somewhere quiet and remote to camp. That is when Susie comes up with a plan. She tells Johnny to park near Nate's car, then secretly slips the stolen money into one of Nate's bags. Her logic is simple. Police will be too lazy to search that many bags, and once the family reaches some isolated place, they can take the money back without much trouble. Roman is against the idea at first. He would rather lie low in Texas for a while, but Merrick, who also happens to be Susie's boyfriend, sides with her. So in secret, Susie moves the stolen cash into Nate's luggage. On top of that, they dump all their guns in the trash. A moment later, Nate and his family return to the car, completely unaware that their trip has just become tied to a violent robbery. This is transit. As they get back on the road, traffic starts building because of the police checkpoints. Merrick's car is stopped and searched, while Nate's family gets waved through first because they look harmless, just a regular family heading out camping with their kids. During the search, police find a walkie-talkie in Merrick's car, but he claims he found it lying on the road. Since nothing else suspicious turns up, the robbers are allowed to go. Elsewhere, Nate once again tries to explain to his family that he truly was not involved in the money laundering scheme that sent him to prison 2 years earlier. He insists he was innocent and that he paid for something he never knowingly took part in. But Ariel still refuses to believe him. In her eyes, he is not just guilty, he is the kind of man who belongs in the world of drug criminals. Meanwhile, Merrick loses track of Nate after he takes a flyover, forcing Johnny to drive against traffic just to catch up. Not long after, Nate starts to realize that someone is following him. He slows down, hoping the car behind will pass, but it never does. Growing uneasy, he decides to speed up instead, convinced something is wrong. Unfortunately, that decision gets him pulled over for speeding, while Johnny, who spots the police first, slows down in time to avoid attention. As Nate is stopped, he briefly locks eyes with Merrick, who drives past him slowly. Nate tries to explain to the officer that he is being followed, but the officer does not take him seriously. Instead, he issues a ticket and marks it as a minor violation. Hearing that, Nate becomes desperate and begs the officer not to record it since he has just been released on parole. But the officer refuses to listen. Nate keeps pleading, which only makes things worse. The officer misreads the situation, thinking Nate is about to attack him.
Get on the ground! Put your... On the ground now! All the way! All the way!
And in a moment of misunderstanding, Nate is handcuffed and taken to the police station. At the same time, Ariel and the kids unload their bags and check into a motel. Not long after, the police inform Nate that the judge handling his parole will not be available anytime soon, which means he has to stay overnight at the station. Later that night, Shane and Junior step outside the motel to get some fresh air, while Ariel rests inside their room. Then suddenly the door opens. Merrick and his crew storm in and attack Ariel with brutal force. Ariel manages to escape into the bathroom, then climbs out through the window while Merrick and the others search the room, but fail to find the money. Shortly after, the motel reports the incident to the police. Feeling sympathetic, the officers release Nate so he can return to his family. For the time being, they station officers outside the motel to keep watch. Meanwhile, Mark and his group remain convinced that the money is still there, possibly hidden by Shane in another room. Back with the family, Ariel insists they should just go home, but Nate wants to continue the camping trip, believing it is their last chance to fix what is broken between them. In the end, Junior steps in and supports his father, not wanting to see his parents fall apart, and convinces them to keep going. The next morning, Nate is escorted by police up to a nearby intersection before continuing on his own. Meanwhile, Merrick and the others arm themselves with knives and begin following him again. By midday, everyone arrives at the swamp campsite. As they unload their bags, Ariel accidentally discovers the hidden money. Shock immediately sets in. In her mind, there is only one explanation. She starts to believe that Nate must have taken the money from the criminals the night before. Disappointed and furious, Ariel orders the kids back into the car. She accuses Nate of putting their family in danger for the sake of that money, even suspecting that this entire camping trip was just a plan for him to escape to Mexico. Meanwhile, Nate is left completely confused, watching his family pull away without understanding what he did wrong. Not long after, Nate comes across one of the bags left on the road, and that is when he finally realizes it is filled with money. He immediately tries to call Ariel, but she rejects the call. Frustrated and overwhelmed, he smashes his phone. At the same time, Ariel, still convinced of the worst, tells the kids that their father is a criminal, but Junior refuses to believe it and continues to defend him. Soon after, Nate hears the sound of a boat engine and rushes toward the swamp, hoping to find help. Meanwhile, Merrick and his group are already closing in on the area. As Nate moves through the swamp, he notices just how dangerous it is, with wild alligators lurking nearby, forcing him to watch every step carefully. Elsewhere, Ariel is still driven by anger as she speeds away, trying to get her family out of danger. But suddenly, Merrick's car appears and slams into hers. He captures Ariel and starts searching for the bag, only to realize it is no longer there. At the same time, Shane and Junior try to escape into the forest, but they are caught by Johnny. They are beaten and pressured to reveal where the money is. Eventually, Ariel tells them the money was left on the road with Nate, and the group immediately heads back to find him. Meanwhile, Nate finally spots a man named Bob driving a boat. Desperate, he runs and shouts for help, but Bob refuses to stop, even though he clearly sees him. With no other choice, Nate leaves the heavy bag behind on a piece of rotting wood and goes to search for help elsewhere, since he can no longer call the police. A moment later, he sees Ariel's car passing by and tries to chase it, but he is too late. Suddenly, he runs into Johnny, who almost hits him with the car. Roman, already furious from the chase, immediately attacks Nate and demands to know where the money is. Nate offers to reveal the location, but only if his family's released. Roman, exhausted and enraged, loses control and lashes out, injuring Nate badly. The situation nearly spirals out of control until Johnny steps in and calls Mark, telling him to turn back. Inside the car, Roman and Johnny express their frustration toward Merrick for agreeing to Susie's plan to hide the money in Nate's bags. Because of that decision, they are now struggling to track down what they stole. Hearing this, Nate finally understands that these are the same criminals from the robbery on the news. He begins to think of a way to use the growing tension between them to his advantage. Eventually, they agree on a deal. Nate goes back into the swamp to retrieve the money, but when he searches for it, the bag is gone. With nothing to show, he returns and asks for his family to be released first. This only makes Merrick furious, and he is ready to kill Nate on the spot. Roman steps in again, pointing out that if Nate dies, they will never find the money. Roman also blames Merrick and Susie for making reckless decisions that caused all of this. Merrick does not take that well, especially when Susie is insulted, and the two of them begin to argue. As tensions rise, Susie tries to calm things down, and in that moment of distraction, Ariel seizes her chance to escape. Nate also manages to break free and rushes back to Ariel's car. Once inside, Nate tells them they need to contact the police, but their phones have already been destroyed. Shane then asks about the money, and when Nate admits that it is gone, Shane begins to doubt him, starting to believe that his father might actually be involved in all of this after all. Back to Nate, he finally runs into a police officer and quickly explains that the men from earlier are still chasing him. But before anything can be done, Merrick suddenly speeds in and crashes straight into the officer, killing him instantly. Without wasting a second, Nate drives off as fast as he can. Meanwhile, Merrick grabs the officer's weapon and vehicle, then continues the pursuit. A high-speed chase follows, with Merrick relentlessly firing shots at Nate. At one point, Nate manages to clip Merrick's car, sending it crashing into a cornfield along with Susie. Nate, however, loses control of his own vehicle and veers off into the grass before ending up stuck in the muddy swamp. Despite the crash, Merrick and Susie both survive. Not far behind, Roman and Johnny find additional weapons in the police car and continue chasing Nate, but they lose his trail, assuming he has escaped into the swamp. Soon after, Nate comes across Bob again, calmly sitting on his boat. Shane tries to ask if Bob has seen a bag filled with money, but Bob reacts angrily, feeling accused. Realizing the situation is getting worse, Nate apologizes and urgently asks for help, explaining that dangerous people are after them and begging for a ride to safety. Unfortunately, Bob refuses and decides he would rather call the police. But just as he reaches for his radio, he is suddenly shot and killed. With no time to react, Nate and his family jump onto the boat and manage to escape. However, the radio falls behind and is later found by Merrick. Seeing this only makes Roman more furious. He blames Merrick for blindly agreeing to Susie's ideas, which ultimately led to them losing the money. On top of that, Susie's carelessness earlier allowed Ariel to escape, making everything spiral out of control. Not long after, Susie returns, and Merrick manages to take Roman's weapon.
Choke on it.
Susie seems pleased, believing Merrick is about to eliminate Roman and Johnny so the two of them can keep the money for themselves. Merrick tells Susie to turn around, as if preparing to carry out the execution. But instead, Merrick turns on Susie and kills her. Realizing she has become more of a liability than an ally. Without hesitation, he sets off again, determined to recover the money. Meanwhile, Nate has no idea where the river will lead, but eventually he and his family discover a small shack that appears to be Bob's hideout. He tells his family to stay hidden there while he steps out to deal with the threat. In the distance, he begins to hear the sound of Merrick's car approaching, and he prepares himself to stop them. On the other side, Merrick finds the abandoned boat, but after checking it, he realizes it is empty. Suspecting a trap, he orders the others to search by water while he continues along the road. Back at the shack, Ariel and the kids move inside. Shane discovers a phone and quickly calls the police, only to be told that help will take about 40 minutes to arrive. At the same time, Merrick spots Nate running across the road and immediately chases after him through the tall grass. Nate tries to hide, but his luck runs out when he encounters a snake, giving away his position and allowing Merrick to find him. Back to Ariel inside the house, Shane discovers a jar filled with bullets along with a rifle that belongs to Bob. Then comes an even bigger surprise. The missing money is also there. At that moment, everything becomes clear. Bob was the one who took it. And just like that, they finally realize Nate was telling the truth all along. He never stole anything. Meanwhile, Nate is captured and forced to reveal where the money is. But since he genuinely has no idea, Merrick puts pressure on him, worsening his already injured leg. At the same time, Roman and Johnny arrive at the house, tightening the situation even further. Ariel considers handing over the money, hoping it might end everything. But Shane quickly realizes that it will not matter. These men have no intention of letting them live. Understanding the danger, they prepare to fight back. Junior is hidden inside a closet for safety, while Shane flips over a table to use as cover. As soon as the robbers enter, Ariel opens fire without hesitation. In an instant, the place turns into chaos. Hearing the gunshots, Merrick rushes toward the house. Not long after, a bundle of money is set on fire and thrown toward Johnny. It is Shane's move, a desperate attempt to force them into releasing his father by threatening to destroy everything they came for. Merrick finally steps forward and demands the money be brought out, or Nate will be killed. Not willing to lose his father, Shane carries the money outside. But even then, the robbers refuse to lower their weapons. Their plan is clear: They want to eliminate the entire family to erase any trace. Seeing that, Ariel fires first. The shots land, and Roman is killed on the spot. At the same time, Nate manages to grab a fallen gun and shoots both Merrick and Johnny. Johnny goes down for good, but Merrick is still alive, and the fight is not over yet. In the struggle, Nate falls into the swamp, a place filled with deadly predators. For a moment, there is no sign of him breathing, and Merrick assumes he is dead before turning his attention back to the money. He lashes out at Shane, and seeing that, Ariel threatens to burn everything. This time, she follows through. The money is set on fire, and Merrick, enraged, knocks her unconscious. Moments later, Nate resurfaces. He is still alive. What follows is the final confrontation. Despite his injuries, Nate pushes forward, driven by one thing only, protecting his family. That determination fuels him as he fights back, forcing Merrick into a corner. Then in a final moment, Nate spots a protruding nail and slams Merrick's head into it, ending the fight once and for all. With that, the nightmare is finally over. Shane, Ariel, and Junior rush to embrace Nate. In the end, they all come to the same realization. Nate was never a criminal. He was just a father who ended up in the wrong place at the worst possible time. So the moral of the story is never go camping with trust issues and random extra bags, because you might accidentally adopt a whole crime plot.